All right, welcome everybody to the Monday, March 21st meeting of the Fortuna Chamber. I will send it over to Melissa for the pledge. Hold on, let me get my flag up. Because I had it and then I forgot about it. There we are. Okay. Bear with me. Sorry, I'm usually more.
It's all right. I'm not organized. Okay, everybody.
Okay, there we go.
Since no one ever wants to do it, I'm doing it again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Amen. All right. Well, introduction of new guests. Who do we got here? Michael.
Oh.
Hi, Michael. You're our guest today. You're also our
He's our
presenter,
special,
right?
He's our special guest.
I'm good with that.
Okay, we all know Katie by now, and everybody else is just, our average Joes, right? Mike Johnson, nice to see you.
How's it going?
We missed you last week.
Are you off jury duty? Are you free?
I am free.
Ooh, good job.
I absconded. I got parole.
Do we have any announcements? Renee, why don't you take us away? Let's start it off.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sanderson. So tonight is a virtual information session for homegrown host homes. Woo, say that fast. If you would like to attend that via Zoom, please send an email to info@homegrownhosthomes.org and they will send you the link. This Wednesday, Lutheran Home for the Aging is having their groundbreaking ceremony at 10 a.m. for their new 8-unit complex. It is open to the public, so come on down and show your support. This weekend is the Daffodil Show, yay, at the River Lodge. Saturday hours are 1 to 5 and Sunday hours are 11 to 4. Admission is free. Plants go fast, so don't wait until Sunday because they usually sell out by Saturday. Adult skate night is back on Saturday night at the Roner Park Fireman's Pavilion. Doors open at 6:30 and you must be 18 and older to attend. We're having a ribbon cutting ceremony for a new member business found in Fortuna Thrift Store located in the Redwood Village Shopping Center on Thursday, March 31st at noon. Everybody is welcome to attend that. Parks and Rec, they're hiring for several recreation leaders. You can find more information at friendlyfortuna.com. Also, Parks and Recs is hosting a spring break camp April 11th through April 15th for children ages 5 to 12. For more information, please call the Parks Department at 725-7620. And then finally, next week, our special guest will be Jane Hill, the Executive Director of the Humboldt County Historical Society. And with that, I will turn it over to Melissa.
I have a real quick question. You mentioned, there's so much. You mentioned something about a skilled nursing facility grand opening.
Oh, the Lutheran Home for the Aging. Yeah, they're breaking ground on an 8-unit complex. It'll be Wednesday at 10 on Smith Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have we always had adult skate night, or is that just a new thing? And why isn't it 21 and over? I mean, if it's 18 and over, let's go 21 and then have alcohol, right?
No. There's no alcohol. No, they're an alcohol and drug-free establishment. You shut it.
I'm with you, Melissa.
I mean, come on. If we gotta hang out with 18-year-olds, then we might as well just bring the kids and call it a family night.
Hey, alcohol and roller skates. What could possibly go wrong?
Sounds like a great time.
Just get on the bird scooters.
Yeah, bird scooters. If anybody wants to talk about those, let's bring that up. We got the city manager on. Yeah, go ahead, Denise. Let's hear it.
So I did it yesterday. Scared the crap out of me. I mean, it was like they were around our house, and if you go to the app, it looks like they're not charged on the app. If they're red. So then we went around the corner and found some. And the person there said they called Bird that morning and said, no, they charge as they go. And so we're like, oh, okay. So we got on them. it's gotta be flat ground for these older people like me. Cause it's like, and it can go really stinking fast. Wear a helmet. They don't charge as they go, because we died 5 minutes later. But it was intense, and I think I'd like to do it again and do it at the park. And, back streets, don't go where there's traffic. I mean, maybe the kids or the 18-year-olds can do that. But it was like, and they charge you per minute. The first thing we Googled was like per mile, and it was like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like, it's per minute. But it's gnarly.
They're so much fun.
You're younger.
My son got in trouble for riding one to school, though. His school didn't like it.
He's too
Well,
young.
technically, yeah, you're supposed to be 18.
I let Gage ride it at the park under my driver's license. He ripped around for $32 worth.
That statement is not endorsed by the city of Fortuna or the Fortuna Chamber of Commerce.
So some interesting things on the bird. We've had a number of incidences, and so they actually put on the age verification. So if you want to break the rules like our chair Sanderson, then you could do that and illegally put your kids on those. But I guess it's parental consent. But
We're gonna have to have
a number of them were being parked at the high school, and the high school was concerned that people were going to come onto the campus to rent them. And so the principal was moving them, but when you move them without renting them, an alarm goes off. And so I could just picture Clint Dewey carrying these things with an alarm going out to the kids' pleasure from inside the classroom. Anyway, we within about 15 minutes, we worked with Bird and they set up a geofence. So now they have to be returned somewhere other than on the high school ground. So we have some tools. They've been very responsive, whether it's putting on age verification or limiting a certain area where there's been a problematic release. They've been responding generally within minutes. So we'll see. It's an experiment till the end of the year, and we'll continue to monitor and make changes. And I'm pleased so far with the responsiveness. And the high school was supportive. They like to see them used. So
I have a question, like a serious question about them. When they were talking about them, they said there would be like locations where you're supposed to return them, and it seems like driving through the park, they are just like confetti everywhere. Is that like gonna happen where there's like a little like, hey, park it here thing that hopefully people will park it at?
it's more, they take them every night and they reset them. It's more where you can't park them, so they'll limit where it's a problem, and then they're going to end up where they were most used or most needed. So people are going, it sounds like people are probably going to the park. And so as they analyze these trends, they're going to figure out where it makes the most sense to put these and where there's problems, they'll limit it. So I think it's the opposite. Where there are problems, they won't be. So, but if there's suggestions and anybody has suggestions, we'll be sure to forward those on to Bird. If you're saying, hey, we really need them at the bus stops, or we really need them at the library or something, let us know. We'll pass that on. And they've been, like I said, they've been very responsive. So let me know if there's somewhere you would like to see them, and we will share that with them.
But also to piggyback on that, if you have the app and you've been riding, you can report if there's a vehicle that you think is in the wrong place, or if for some reason it ends up outside your house and you want it removed, you can put in a ticket through the app. They have a phone number. I don't know how great it is for getting things responded to that way, but the easiest way is to run it through the app or send them a support ticket on their website, bird.co.
Do we know who the local person is, or is it a secret?
It's a secret. I mean, it's a secret to us. Bird knows.
Is the person or is the company?
It's a company. The company is Bird, and they hire a local fleet manager to run around and collect them all at night and then store them overnight and recharge them, and then they have to put them back out.
That's awesome.
But they keep that information confidential just so they're not getting harassed. So they, the Bird will vet all of the service inquiries or questions, and it's just a nice thing for the fleet manager to not have to deal with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's my favorite every other Monday of the week. That means it's a city council meeting. Merritt, why don't you tell us about what's going on tonight?
All right, first of all, the format, it's going to be a little bit different this week. We're going to be back in person. but we don't have our hybrid meeting set up yet. We are waiting for some of the hardware, which is probably in high demand across the country. So if you want to attend, you've got 2 ways to see the council meeting tonight. One of those is in person, which is preferred, or the second is access Humboldt, but you won't have a way to participate remotely. So if you want to participate in the meeting, you'll have to be there in person. So fair warning. We have a number of things on the agenda. I'm actually, it's pretty weird to be in there and go having a live council meeting. We had a special workshop the other day, and I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to be back, and I think the council is too. Anyway, a number of items we're holding back. We're going to be introducing a number of employees. We have a vehicle equipment mechanic, street maintenance worker, administrative assistant, police officer, and then there's going to be a Citizen Hero Award and proclamation presented to Joseph Bishop. Some of you might have seen the article in the Red-Headed Black Belt, but our police chief put that together to recognize a young man who saved 2 kids from drowning when they were on vacation. And pretty good. So he will be recognized publicly at the council meeting. We have a number of our monthly reports from all of our departments on the consent calendar. And then we have a couple of business items. One of them is authorization to submit an urban greening grant. We're looking at the parcel that if you were sitting in the rodeo grounds and looking straight out across the way, it was logged last year or the year before. We're interested in looking at that to maintain an urban green space and add to the city's parks. And the second item is some pay classification changes for a couple of positions at the city. And then there's a discussion item with regard to the Fortuna Business Improvement District that the council asked to be put on there. And that is it for the council meeting.
Okay. Any questions? Is that it? Ray? Anything going on? You're muted, Ray. Everyone's got to say it. Everyone, it happens to everybody.
How quickly we forget. In case anyone hasn't heard, we are having a meet and greet, an open house, the Kiwanis are, over at the Eel River Brewery over on Riverwalk this coming Thursday after work, 5:30. So as you close the doors to your shop, come on over and have some munchies and maybe a brew and find out who the Kiwanis are, what we do, and how we might be able to better serve the community. Kind of get to know the Kiwanians, so to speak. Second event is a spaghetti dinner. And oh, by the way, the first event is open to the public. There's no charge. It just come as you are and shake hands and meet people. Second item is the spaghetti feed that the Kiwanis put on every year for the 4-H clubs. All the proceeds from the spaghetti dinner go to the Hydesdale, Fortuna, and Briggsville clubs, to the kids. What we do is we take all the money and then we look at how many tickets each club sold, and then we split up the money according to how many tickets they sold accordingly. You get spaghetti with meatballs, salad, garlic bread, a full dinner. It's ideally we'd like to have reservations, but it's a drive-through. But if you just want to show up and grab one, you're certainly welcome to. And that is on April the 3rd from 4 to 8 at the Fortuna Veterans Hall. So any more information, there's a flyer on the chamber website, and hope to see you there. Support the kids.
Cool. Great.
Love that.
Anybody else? Are we ready to hear from our speaker today? Michael Davies-Hughes from the Office of Education. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Melissa. I am so excited to be here today. And I tell you, I've been thinking about Fortuna quite a bit because my journey into administration actually started in Fortuna. My last year of teaching was at, and Becky's shaking her head because Becky and I worked together. I should say I worked with Becky, like everybody in Fortuna Union School District worked for Becky, I think, even though she wasn't the superintendent. But we really know who gets the work done, right, in the office. But my last year of teaching which was my best year of teaching, was at Fortuna Town School at the time, right? Not middle school. So very fond memories of Fortuna. So I appreciate being able to be back, at least virtually, in the friendly city. So my name is Michael Davies-Hughes. I'm the Superintendent of Schools for Humboldt County, a position that I've held with honor, actually only since November. So I was appointed by the County Board of Education to complete the term of the previous Superintendent of Schools, which was Chris Hartley. He left for another position at the state level. And this is an elected position, so I'll be up for election again in June, and a big sigh of relief a week from last Friday, because I did discover that there were no challengers. So, you know, that's good, and not just good for me, but I think it's good for the organization to have some stability, and that we can really focus on the work that we have ahead, which there's a considerable amount of, and I'll touch on that work in just a moment. Melissa, to honor the time, can you tell me how much time I have?
I believe you have until 1 o'clock if you want.
Oh
right,
my
Renee?
goodness. Well, I hope you have lots of questions then, because
About 20 minutes is normal. Don't feel pressured, Michael.
okay, I won't. But so what I'll do is I do have some slides just to kind of get the juices flowing about the topics that I want to cover with you. But my goal today is really to share with you what the County Office of Education does, because I think that there's some misunderstanding or lack of understanding about really what we do, what we oversee and what we don't oversee. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity, and we will dive in. All right, Melissa, are you able to see my screen? If you can see it, we can all see it. Yeah.
Yep, you're
Yep.
good.
All
Go right ahead.
Awesome. Here we go. So let's talk about, first of all, kind of California education in 3 different pieces. The first one is you have the state. So at the state level, we have those regulations, the funding, the policy, and that's all kind of channeled through something called the California Department of Education, or CDE, and the State Board of Education, or the SBE, and then also the state legislators. So that's kind of level 1 in terms of education. Very little federal oversight or control for education. Most of that control is at the state level and not at the federal level. Then at the local level, these are the school districts, right? Your school district, school boards, and the staff within each of those school districts. There are 1,000 individual school districts throughout the state. And in Humboldt County, we have 31 school districts. The county office also has a program that is known as a local education authority. So kind of technically there are 32, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then my role within the County Office of Education and Superintendent is to look over the county programs. So there are 58 county offices of education, 1 for every county in California. And we are, we fill that gap between the state level and the local level. So the biggest focus of the County Office of Education is about supporting the students through the work of the districts that we have, right? So we're a support organization. So here's just something that I have certainly heard over the years, that sometimes we'll get calls from parents who they may have a complaint or something, then they say, well, we have this concern with the district or with district staff. County office, can you swoop in and do something about this? And the reality is that we don't oversee, as the county office, or govern the local school districts. That is done at the district level. So every school district in Humboldt County and across the state has their own governing board. And they're the ones that oversee the staff and the programs within that school district. What we do is provide that support and those services to make sure that those districts operate efficiently and effectively. So here's some of those common functions that we have. We do have fiscal oversight over the district. So we approve their budgets. We make sure that they are accountable to their budgets and that they are fiscally solvent. We also approve something called the LCAP, which is the Local Control and Accountability Plan. It's a comprehensive document. Essentially, what it does is it specifies in very specific terms what the district is going to do to support students and how they're going to use those funds from the state to support students in their learning. We have oversight on approval of those once it's been approved by the District Board of Education. Lots of work within the Humboldt County Office of Education and professional development, which is building the capacity of our educators so that they can work more effectively with students who serve. And then finally, that assisting of districts with their performance initiatives. So if our students are falling short in a certain area that we'd like to see them performing better, what are some things that the districts can do to bolster that support? And then how can we leverage county office staff, county office resources to support those initiatives? It's really not a top-down, but rather a bottom-up. Hey, districts, what are some of the issues that you're identifying that you're having problems with? What can we do to support you, rather than thou shalt do this, right? Which doesn't get a lot of buy-in, as you well know. We also serve some of those vulnerable student populations. One of the things that I really appreciated someone saying to me recently about county offices is that we step into that space of the underserved student. We step into that space of the underserved student so that we don't have those gaps that are existing where students kind of fall through. Then part of that underserved student population is students who are expelled, for example. So students are expelled usually for behavioral issues, right? They're not welcome in the school district anymore. We have to find a place for them so that they can continue their education. And those are students that we place in county programs. We also support incarcerated youth. So those are students that go through to juvenile hall. So we have teachers in juvenile hall embedded within the facility who provide education for students who are incarcerated. And that's an HCOE program. We have a comprehensive program for serving students with special needs, especially in those early years with Special Beginnings program. You may also be familiar with Glen Paul program that we have, serving students with severe disabilities. We have a program actually down in Fortuna. We have a couple of programs down in Fortuna. And then, as I mentioned, we serve those early learners. So additional things that we do, we host student events, academic achievements, competitions. Unfortunately, over the past couple of years, we've had to do those virtually, but I am very pleased to say that we are now moving into being able to do those events in person. Super excited because, as you well know, there's nothing like being present with one another in person. So that's very exciting. The enrichment programs, those are also programs that we help oversee. For example, after school programs, we directly support some districts after school programs through the county. A big emphasis that we have in the County Office of Education is around career and technical education. Some of you may be familiar with the HROP program that was run through the county. Those funds went away, and now it's been channeled into CTE incentive grants, and we have a whole department that oversees the career and technical education. And we have some fantastic partnerships with organizations, businesses and organizations throughout the county that we're really excited about, because there's not only one way for students to be successful, right? When they leave school, we want to make sure that as educators, we are enabling students to be able to choose the futures that they want, whatever that may be. Okay, so as far as my role, every county office of education is overseen by the county superintendent of schools. In all but 5 counties of those 58, the superintendent is a publicly elected official. The other counties, those other 5 counties, they're either appointed by the governing board of education, or they're actually appointed by the board of supervisors. So that's kind of the big picture on superintendents of schools. Now, the county board of education, we have a 5-person board, and they have a very different role than the role of a board of education for a district. So they actually don't, as a district, the County Board of Education is actually ultimately responsible for the staff of the district, right? Whereas the County Board of Education actually has no oversight or authority when it comes to the staff and the operations of the County Office of Education. That actually falls just with the superintendent as an elected official. So the county board does have a very important role, though. You know, we approve charter schools, and we have actually within the county, we have 15 charter schools. So that's a large number. Not all are approved by or authorized by the County Office of Education. Some are authorized by districts, others are by the county board. We also, as a county board of education, we also hear school district inter-district transfer appeals, which enables students to choose to enroll in a district that is outside of their district of residence. Okay. Expulsion I mentioned earlier, the county board hears expulsion hearings, and they approve the County Office of Education budget, and we have our own LCAP. And again, the County Board of Education, just like the Superintendent of Schools, has no authority over individual school districts. And then, you know, I've already talked about the school district governing team, so I won't go over that or belabor that, or the role of the local school board. Again, those are the ones that really oversee the operations within the school district. We'll talk a little bit about HCOE, just to give you a broad picture. We have 380 employees. We have a budget of approximately $50 million annually. And we have several sites that directly support students. So I mentioned our incarcerated youth in our court programs. We also have a community school, and that community school is primarily for those students who have not been successful in a regular school setting, including those students who have been expelled from their school. Our Glen Paul programs are throughout the county. The home base of Glen Paul is here in Eureka, but we serve students all the way through to age 22. So they're eligible for those services, special education services through age 22. And then we have our youngest learners. So these are our 3- and 4-year-olds in our special beginnings program. Again, we support those 31 school districts. And I mentioned, sorry, the 12 charter schools, I said 15, 12. And we have countywide, we have approximately 17,700 students that we serve. So that's kind of us at a glance. As far as what we've got coming up at HCOE, there's always so many exciting things going on. You know, internally we have, we're working on 4 pillars in the way in which we operate internally. I want to focus really on the pandemic, because we can't have any conversation without talking about the pandemic, right? But I think we're at a very important transition right now in terms of our support for students through this pandemic. You know, it's been over 2 years since the decision was made by school districts throughout California to move to distance learning, which was students not physically being able to come to school, but rather us having to teach students through this kind of platform, like a distance learning Zoom platform. And we know that that's had an implication on terms of learning and social emotional well-being of students, right? Because we're very social beings, and that opportunity for students to develop appropriately, socially, building friendships, building healthy relationships has definitely been impacted. And we're seeing the results of that right now. So our responsibility through HCOE is really to help districts, not only through this pandemic, but to help them think about beyond the pandemic. You know, how do we address these learning needs that students have to accelerate their learning, and also address the social emotional needs that students have. One of the things that we try to release or help the burden of with our school staff is that if you think of front office staff in a school, the secretary, the principal, and over the past 12 months, 18 months, those individuals have spent a great deal of time doing things that were completely foreign to them, right? They had no experience with before, but have now become experts. And we're talking about testing students for COVID-19 and doing something called contact tracing, right? So when a student is exposed or we have a positive case, that they are reaching out to those individuals and families who may have had a child who was exposed to that positive student. It has taken a huge amount of time. I'm really optimistic about us being able to come back to some level of normalcy. And I won't use the term new normal, but there is kind of a almost a rebenching of what school looks like going forward, because it's not going to look the same as it did pre-pandemic. That is for sure. So we're creating what that new look is, but I'm really optimistic about how things are looking forward. I will tell you that on March the 14th, the first day of school, last Monday, when mask mandates were lifted in K-12 settings, there was a palpable kind of lightening of the burden in many schools. Just the fact that, you know, there was this barrier that was allowed to be removed was, I think, a sign of progress. Now, I understand that in some school districts and some schools that masks are still required. And that school districts can make that decision. As I mentioned, local boards can determine policies for their own school district. And some boards have chosen to continue to require masking of students and staff. And that is certainly something that they have the prerogative to do. And we honor that, right? We want to make sure that we're supporting the choices that are made by school boards and not, you know, not creating undue hardship. Because let's be honest, some of the, and you may have seen this in the news, that some school board meetings have become very, very controversial, a lot of conflict, a lot of strong emotions. And I feel fortunate we haven't had this here, but you know, in some parts of the state that they've turned violent. You know, these protests against masking and vaccinations have turned violent. And I'm very concerned about what is the example that we're showing to our kids, right? We need to find peaceful ways about engaging in these critical and, you know, difficult conversations, but they need to stay as conversations and not turn into actions that are violent for our kids. Anyway, so things are getting, I'm very optimistic looking at even the data going forward, things are going to get better for our kids, and that's great for our communities. Personally, I have a real focus on early literacy. I believe that every child needs to have the opportunity to be a reader. We know that the trajectory of students who are not fluent readers by the time they reach third grade does not look good. You know, increased dropout, decreased opportunities for employment, and the list goes on and on. So we want to make sure that every child has the opportunity to be a reader. And that is certainly a focus that I have within Humboldt County Office of Education. UTK is Universal Transitional Kindergarten. That's something new. And you may have heard of this. So by 2025, 26, all 4-year-olds will now have the opportunity to be in school. And so we're phasing that in throughout schools in California, and Humboldt County, we are preparing our school district and supporting our school districts to make that change. It's a significant change, and I think it will be a positive change, but it's going to take some time. And I'm pleased that the governor has allowed us some time to kind of slowly build into that UTK requirement. Inclusion means that we've talked about the special education services that we provide. Inclusion means that we're finding ways to have our students with disabilities be a part of the regular classroom as much as possible. That's what inclusion is, right? You know, past practice has been that students who have disabilities have been, you know, excluded, right? Because we feel like they need special services. So we're trying to find ways in which we can provide those services in an inclusive setting where they're with their same age peers, because they need to have that opportunity. I want to talk briefly about equity, because that's something that you, I'm sure, have heard. You know, equity, social justice. You may have heard the words critical race theory. You know, these are terms that unfortunately have sometimes caused an inflammatory kind of response in our society. But I want to clearly define the equity work that's going on within our schools. And maybe I can best illustrate that with just this kind of photo here. So, you know, what equity is versus equality. Equality is giving every student the same thing, right? That's equality. And you can see in the box, they're watching a baseball game. Every child, no matter what their size, gets the same size box. But you can clearly see that their access to viewing the baseball game is not the same, right? They all get the same thing. They don't have the same access. You think about that in education. The child who is a reader in 3rd grade gets a book from the library to read and write a book report on, keep a reading log. That sounds great if they're a reader. But is the child who comes to 3rd grade, is giving that child the same book and having the same expectations of that child, is that fair? And is that equity? Well, clearly it's not, because that non-reader is not going to be able to read that book. Not going to be able to do that report. So what is the support that that non-reading 3rd grade child needs? It's different than the reader, right? And so we're giving that child what that child needs, and that is equity. And you can see on the illustration on the right-hand side, kind of what that might equate to for these individuals looking at the game, right? The child all the way on the right-hand side needs a higher box or a number of boxes to be able to have the same access to view the game. And we see the same thing in education. What does every child need in order to be successful? And it's not the same. It's not the same. Okay. And then I want to just finally talk about partnerships and grants. We cannot do the work that we do in education in silos, right? We can't just operate like, oh, your education, you take care of education. All right, well, we're business, so we just take care of business. As you well know, as a Chamber of Commerce, we look for partnerships because we're taking care of our community, and our children and families are part of our community. So we know that we can leverage the strengths and the skills of different partnerships with public organizations and with private organizations to be able to strengthen education for students. And also, we look to strengthen those partnerships with parents. One of the things that this pandemic has taught us is that we rely on parents and have relied on parents over the past 2 years more than ever before to be partners in their children's education. We can't lose that now that we are coming out of this phase, or this intense phase of the pandemic. We must work hard to maintain those relationships with parents, because we know they're an integral part of student success. So really excited about the work that we have ahead. Thank you for your participation in our community and in our schools. And I'm available to answer any questions that you might have at this time. I'm going to stop sharing.
Great, thank you. I'll kick it off, and then if anybody else has any questions, just raise your hand or raise your hand virtually. You're talking about partnerships. I know Lemonade Day is a big one. Do you guys work with that organization? I know AEDC supports it, but I didn't know if the Office of Education did. And then things like after school programs. Do you work with entities outside of the school? So for instance, if there was a teen center in Fortuna, for example, or I know there's one in Eureka, would you work with something like that and come up with, I don't know, programming or something? I mean, I don't even know. You're talking to a person who doesn't have children, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
Great questions. First of all, I'm a big fan of Lemonade.
Yeah.
We don't
just
work specifically with Lemonade Day, so to speak, as an official partnership. However, we do provide programs and support entrepreneurship. right? And so when you think about these kids who are engaging in entrepreneurship with their Lemonade Day, that is certainly something that we support, and we support programs within schools that engage students in those opportunities for entrepreneurship, mostly at later grade levels. So we talk about middle school into high school, around career and technical education, and entrepreneurship is certainly part of that. So not Lemonade Day directly, Renee, but definitely entrepreneurship. In regards to the second piece, which is partnerships for after-school programs. So there are many layers to this. After-school programs can be supported directly by the school district themselves. They hire their own staff, they provide that service to students after school. Sometimes there are partnerships where they subcontract those the staffing for after-school programs to another entity. For example, Eureka City Schools partners with the city of Eureka through their recreation department to provide staffing for after-school programs. Where other partnerships come in, for example, Teen Center, Boys and Girls Club, is because some of the same kids need that service, there is the opportunity to kind of partner in the after-school program to serve students who may be a part of the Teen Center, so that they can either there's transportation that comes onto campus so that they can participate in an after-school program through a partnership with the Teen Center, or vice versa, that the Teen Center, that there's a way for the students who are in the after-school program to be served at the Teen Center. The County Office of Education doesn't directly orchestrate those partnerships. Those are done really through individual school districts.
Great, thank you. That's good information. Thank you. Becky Giacomini has her hand raised. Prepare yourself,
I'm
Michael.
being so polite. Yeah, that's not nice. Yes, Lemonade Day. I love Lemonade Day. And unfortunately, they're not doing it this year. They are going to wait until 2023. I know I was part of it, and it's like, bummer. Anyway, so speaking of after school programs in the old days, and I'm really old, talking about the old Healthy Start grants and how we got a lot of those after school programs going. Do they still have any of that kind of funding, Michael, or is there not anymore? Or is it just district-wide and everybody has to kind of work through their district budgets?
That's a really great question. What has happened is that, and this is really in response to pandemic, is that the state has allocated a tremendous amount, billions of dollars, to what's called an expanded learning opportunities program, where there is actually now a requirement for school districts to provide students with 30 days worth of additional support for students, which can look different, but it means an expansion of after schools so that there is actually an opportunity for every child to be engaged in an after school program. And then also, what are the summer learning opportunities? So summer school being much more expansive than what it was in the past. And then also, even during intersession. So, maybe there's a program that's offered during spring break or during the winter break. Previously, there just wasn't the funds to be able to support that kind of level of programming. Now there are, it's actually a requirement. So Becky, what we can expect is that there's going to be a significant expansion, and it's already occurring, for after school programs and summer school programs throughout the county. Here's the issue, and you are probably seeing this also in the private sector in regards to finding staff, right?
Yeah.
Or in education right now, money is not the issue. I'll say that with some caveats. One-time money, right?
Yeah.
So we receive a lot of one-time means that there's a fiscal cliff down the road here. It's not ongoing funds, but the issue we're having is to actually have the capacity to provide the services that we're being asked to provide, because we just simply can't find the staff. So
right.
That's a definite challenge for us. And we're seeing it with after school programs, is just being able to find the staff who are able to fill those spots to serve those students.
Yeah, I was going to follow up. I know it's just the staffing is just really, it's just not in one district, it's all over, and obviously in businesses too. So we definitely see it. But just to follow up on the after school program and funding, I'm part of a group, and I think Denise is still on the call, that we're part of a recreation district, and we are trying to partner with different folks to try to get a pool built in Fortuna. And we're reaching out to all sorts of different partners, from College of the Redwoods to the different school districts, obviously in Fortuna, the high school and elementary. And I'm on the warpath with both of the superintendents there. They see me coming and I think they want to shut their door. But anyway, we're trying to find funding and partnerships to try to get a pool built so these kids would have a place to learn how to swim for safety reasons and recreation. And I don't know if there's funds that way with the state. I know there's billions of dollars, these one-time monies because of COVID, but just thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah, so pool, Becky, that's an interesting one. There's one thing about building a pool, and there's the other part of it is being able to maintaining that pool, right?
We know it.
Yeah. So that's where it gets difficult with one-time funding,
Sure.
To be able
we just want to build it. We'll work on the maintenance part. We already kind of working on that.
Right. I mean, there are facility grants out there, and I there's an angle that you could have in regards to health and safety to be able to build a pool. And I can certainly see that as being a possibility. So if there are shrewd grant writers that you may know throughout the county, they're a limited number, but if the proposal is well written and gets some traction at the state level, then that might be a possibility.
Okay, hopefully Merritt's listening to this conversation from the city. So okay, I won't take any more time. It's great having you on and listening, and there's been lots of changes since I've been in that seat at the district office, but way to go, Michael.
Well, thanks, Becky. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Ray Lovell, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I had a question for Michael. The pandemic has certainly affected the attendance at the schools, both elementary, secondary, and post-secondary. Traditionally, you've been funded through ADA, average daily attendance. The number of students you serve establishes your budget, your income to a large extent. What with the pandemic, last year, I understand they kind of just put that on hold and gave you the amount of ADA that you had on the previous year, because they knew that there were a lot of students. There was a transition going through. Students had to learn how to be online, and that was difficult. Now that we're coming off of pandemic, I understand you're back on an ADA system. I'm wondering if you could comment on that and how it's impacted your operations.
Yeah, certainly. So there's kind of a double whammy there, Ray. There's both the impact of decreased ADA. So just to kind of summarize, we are funded, or school districts are mostly funded on their average daily attendance. And the goal really for most school districts is to get about that 95%. And school districts have been operating over these past 2 years with numbers significantly less than that. Some districts especially, now in the 80s, the 80%, which definitely has an impact on their budget. We've had a hold harmless, like Ray said, so we were able to use prior year ADA for our funding. But the double whammy is not only have we had a decrease in attendance, but we've also had a decrease in enrollment. So less students that are actually attending school in the county. So that does have a significant impact on school budgets, which have been buffered by some of this one-time money, by some softening of the requirements around ADA, especially around utilizing independent study. For example, many students have gone to independent study and were able to claim ADA through an independent study program. Going forward, Ray, there are a number of bills that are in the legislature that are working through the state in regards to being able to maintain that hold harmless. Well, actually, that hold harmless is going away, but a different funding mechanism going forward. One of them is to look at either current year ADA going into 2022, 23, or looking at a rolling 3-year average, whichever is the highest, would provide the highest fiscal impact, positive fiscal impact to the district. So, that's really what's coming through now, because I think the governor and the legislator is hearing very loud and clear that school districts, are continuing to feel the impacts of the pandemic, and certainly will for some time to come. So we do need some relief on that. I think we're going to get some relief on that.
Thank you. Good information.
Great. Any final questions for Michael before we let him loose? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael. That was great information. I really appreciate you being here and sharing all of that. And good luck in your uncontested run for re-election. That's always nice. That makes it easy. I wish you all the best with that. And we will see everybody next week on Monday for the Humboldt County Historical Society. Have a good week, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya.